All right. Welcome, everybody, to the Sherwood City Council regular meeting, March 18th, 2025. It is 7:25. I apologize, everyone. We ran a little late with our last executive session, but we're ready to get going here. All rise for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
All right, thank you. Sylvia, roll call.
Mayor Rosner?
Here?
Council President Young?
Here.
Councilor Browse?
Here.
Councilor Mays?
Here.
Councilor Scott?
Here.
Councilor Giles?
Here.
And Councilor Stankey is absent.
All right, thank you, Sylvia. Approval of the agenda. Do I have a motion?
I make a motion to approve the agenda. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, council. Item 5 on the consent agenda tonight, we have 4 items. Item A, approval of the March 4th, 2025 City Council meeting minutes. Item B, Resolution 2025-015, adopting City Council goals and deliverables for the fiscal year 2025-26. And item C, Resolution 2025-016, authorizing the city manager to execute an Oregon Transportation Infrastructure Bank loan for the construction of Ice Age Drive. And item D, Resolution 2025-017, authorizing the city manager to enter into an intergovernmental agreement with Clean Water Services for the construction of the Brookman Trunk Sewer Extension Project.
I move consent. Second.
I have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Once again, motion passes. Thank you, council. Citizen comments. Sylvia, do we have any? Okay, and I'm just checking online. It doesn't look like we have anyone online either. So we'll move right through that. And then before we move on to the next part, we wanted to, Sebastian, you wanted to introduce someone tonight.
Yes, Mayor Rosner, Council, it's my pleasure to introduce you to Chelsea Oletriste. She is working with my office. She's graduating this May, and in interviewing her, she just had a great warmth and an interest in city work. So would you introduce yourself and give council a little bit about you?
Sure.
On the microphone. It's gotta be. Oh, it's on.
It's on.
That one's on.
That one's on.
Okay.
That is
Obviously.
true.
Okay. Well, is it on? Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay. Well, hi everyone. My name is Chelsea Oletriste Martinez, and I'm so happy to be introducing myself as the current law clerk for the city of Sherwood. I'm born and raised in Newport, Oregon, and I went to college in Newburgh, so I'm an Oregonian through and through. I will be graduating in May, and I will be taking the Oregon bar, and I'm really excited to join the legal community here in my home state. My background is in government. My previous position was a Wayne Morris Legal Fellow in Congresswoman Bonamici's DC office. That was such a fun experience, and it's been matched with this experience that I hold currently. So far, I've worked on a wide range of legal research and drafting. I worked on a motion to extend judgment. I worked on a staff report, and I'm currently working on a motion or a memo regarding the removal of billboards and preparing for my first trial as a court-certified law student. So I'm really, really excited to be a part of all these experiences and to contribute to Sherwood's legal team. Thanks so much for giving me the opportunity to share a little bit about myself and to learn more as a student here. Thank you.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you. Oh, you're not out of the woods yet. We like to ask questions.
Oh, sure, yeah.
Tough ones.
Tough, yeah, really tough questions. No, thank you so much for being here, and I've heard you've been doing really good work, and we really appreciate it. And so, did you go to George Fox?
I did go to Fox. I double majored in philosophy and politics, and I graduated in 2020, which was a year to graduate.
Wow, yeah. Well, very cool. Other questions?
In law school, Lewis and Clark or U of O? Or
I'm currently at the University of Oregon School of Law's Portland program. So I commute from Beaverton, and they have a campus up there where it used to be Concordia's campus.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, yeah.
So it's pretty beautiful, yeah.
That's very cool.
Do you want to stick with government law, or is there something else that you'd like to do?
Ideally, yes. I really enjoy municipal law. I think it's a really great space to learn about a range of different things. I attended LOC's and the Oregon State Bar's municipal conference in Newport last semester, and I really fell in love with it. I've been part of state government, federal government, and now local government, and I think it's where I like it the most.
Awesome. It is the place to be, and there's great opportunities as you're probably learning or you will learn. It's a great opportunities for a career, and to and really enjoy your profession.
Keith, did you hear one of the things she's working on?
Yes, I was super
Billboards. That really excites him.
Super excited. More than just me. There's more than one of me on the topics. That's great.
My other question was, how did you decide on Sherwood to do your internship?
So I interviewed for this position during the Northwest Public Service Fair that happens every year at Lewis and Clark. I know the area because I went to school in Newburgh, and I was trying to find a place where I could learn a lot, and it was a growing city that I had heard from a lot of different colleagues that would be a great place to learn, and so that's why I decided here. I also applied to a couple other cities, but this is ultimately where I think God led me to, and I'm really excited.
Thank you.
We are excited to have you here, so thank you so much.
How long do we have you?
Until the end of April.
Oh, quick.
So pretty
Really
soon,
quick.
Yeah.
Awesome.
Awesome.
Good luck on
Future
the
is
bar.
very bright, and we're
Thank you.
lucky to have you.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you. Suggestion.
Yeah, way to go.
Awesome. All right. We are on to item 7. We have a public hearing tonight. Sylvia, you want to read us in?
The Sherwood City Council will hold a public hearing this evening to receive testimony on Ordinance 2025-001, amending Sherwood Municipal Codes 8.04 and 10.08, and removing 9.60 regarding ticketing and towing vehicles. The public hearing this evening will be conducted as follows. Staff will present a staff report. Questions, if any, by the City Council for staff. We will then receive written testimony. We will then open the public hearing for testimony, and the time will be limited to 4 minutes per person. Any interested person may present testimony. We will then close the public hearing. No other comments will be heard from the public. Final comments by staff, questions of staff, if any, by the council, followed by council discussion. This is the first hearing before the City Council on this item. Generally, the council will hold 2 hearings prior to making a decision. A second hearing on this item is currently scheduled for the April 1st meeting. If you wish to speak, please complete a request to speak form and submit it to the city recorder prior to the time the public hearing is open for testimony. The mayor will recognize people who wish to speak, and any comments must be addressed through the mayor. When you come forward, please state your name and place of residence for the record, as this hearing will be recorded.
Thank you, Sylvia. And with that, we'll go ahead and get started with staff report. And let's see, who do we have up? Sebastian.
Mayor Rosner and Council, Ordinance 2025-001 came to you with coordination of the Sherwood Police Department, as well as a thorough review of various cases that reviewed other cities or counties' parking and towing rules. From that thorough review, what you have before you takes into consideration certain areas that the court has considered to be very important considerations that any code should take into consideration. First and foremost is due process. The 14th Amendment assures certain rights, including a prompt hearing and pre-towing notification. Both of those considerations have been included into the amendments before council. Additionally, probably about 10 years ago, it was fairly common practice for law enforcement officers to tow vehicles following an arrest for driving under the influence of intoxicants or driving under suspension. The court indicated that if the car is parked in a location that isn't interfering with traffic and isn't interfering with pedestrians, that the city's action in moving it is actually a Fifth Amendment taking. So with that in mind, we made sure to make smart changes to the existing code so that we keep the structure of what has been working and make strategic changes so that it's more enforceable. The third point that's taken into consideration is potential issue on preemption. Under Oregon state statute, if a vehicle is towed pursuant to statute, there's a requirement to have a hearing within 3 days of the request. Sherwood's code, as it's written currently, is a 5-day request. Now, it isn't clear whether or not preemption applies, but it probably does. With coordination of our court, we were able to have the structure to be able to provide a hearing within 3 days. And one of the things that I've added in here is the ability to have those hearings as a remote Zoom option. Currently, as you all know, Sherwood Municipal Court only operates on Fridays. So with a 3-day turnaround, something had to get either the judge had to be available on call or some other mechanism. And it's trying to draw in as many options and as much flexibility as possible. And we'll go into a few more of those examples as we go through this presentation. Starting off with the code itself, and this code that I'm referring to as long-term violation procedures is part of the existing code with a couple of strategic tweaks. So for instance, the very first stage, which is already in code, is made more clear in the amendments that the first violation is any violation. So as an example, if you think of a car that's parked in a 4-hour zone and they stay for 5 hours, that's the first violation. In order for this long-term violation procedure, there has to be some underlying violation. Once you get to stage 2, that is this vehicle that was in a 4-hour zone is still there 24 hours later. And in that case, that's the second level violation that comes with an administrative fee. The administrative fee portion will be presented to council at the next hearing on the 1st. Once you get to the third stage, that would be an additional administrative fee, and that occurs 72 hours after stage 2. So that's a total of 96 hours at this time that the vehicle is somewhere it's not allowed to be. And at that time is the first time that police are authorized to tow. So it would come with those 3 tickets and a tow. During that period of time, there'd be various notifications put on the car indicating the location of the car, the citation, and when is the earliest date and time that the vehicle could be towed. There's a stage 4, and this is part of the existing code, but there was also some slight tweaks to make it a little bit better. So right now, if that same vehicle that's gotten to stage 3 goes back to the same location and continues to violate, that could be an immediate tow, and that's stage 4. And that is for an entire year period. There is also, and you'll see at the bottom, there is a new code provision that I'm calling reoccurring offenses. This I took from the City of Bend, and essentially what it says is if a person has 2 judgments through municipal court that are owed and unpaid, that vehicle can be towed immediately. It's 2 or more. And as far as the court is concerned, this does not create a taking. This is also not a violation of due process in that this is one of the examples the court talks about where fines itself are not changing behavior. So this is a situation in which you keep pumping out fines and person keeps not paying. This is a way in which the vehicle could be towed, and that would be a second mechanism of getting compliance.
Question, it's two unpaid parking violations within our jurisdiction.
Within our jurisdiction.
Yes.
And it's also, I got a parking ticket on a Monday, I get a parking ticket on a Tuesday. I haven't paid them yet, but they're not due for 30 days or 45 days. So
it would only be after the hearing, assuming that person either didn't show up and was found in default, or was found to have violated the code after a contested hearing. That would only be the one of the two that would be the foundation before this new rule would apply. I've got
just one more quick question, and maybe this is for our chief. Just an understanding of the scale of the challenge. I mean, how many tows are we doing a year?
right now we can't.
I'm sorry.
Is it great? I don't know that number. It's not.
It's a handful, if I understand.
Sebastian spoke to earlier. I mean, we're really hamstrung on when we can tow. So it has to be a hazard tow, in the middle of the road. It can't move. Typically, I would say 95% of our tows are from crash-related incidents and not arrested or suspensions.
Okay, thank you. Sorry, Sebastian, go ahead.
There are 3 additional terms, and each of these terms are currently in code. An abandoned vehicle focuses on the condition of the vehicle. So it's not just that it's left on the street, but it's left on the street in a particular condition that suggests that it's not going to be moved, and perhaps on purpose. If that external reason is apparent, so for instance, a missing license plate, it appears to be inoperative, it's wrecked, that is one of the foundational requirements for it to be deemed abandoned. Additionally, with that condition, it has to be unmoved for 48 hours. So that would just be the start of the ticket. That would be stage number 1. Then you would add on the long-term violation, and so that's another 96 hours, 6 days total. In this situation would be the soonest that an abandoned vehicle could be towed. Similarly, with a stored vehicle, there isn't anything externally wrong with the vehicle. It's just parked there for a really long time. And in this instance, current code in Sherwood says that it has to be in the same position for 120 hours. So then you add on the 96 hours as the long-term violation. So 9 days would be the soonest a vehicle that is stored could be towed. As opposed to hazardous vehicles are currently defined in Sherwood's code. And that would be some sort of a condition that would be dangerous to health. And that I've added to our code as an immediate tow. Certainly if it's a situation polluting, it needs to be moved because it's dangerous to the public. That's something that needs to be moved immediately.
I assume you mentioned earlier parking on the street. I assume this would also apply to city-owned parking lots.
That's correct, and that's another change that I've made that we're going to go into in a bit. I've expanded the definition to include city lots. There aren't too many of them, but in order to give the police department the broadest possible authority, we wanted to make sure that repeat offenders aren't just going to our lots.
Basically, anywhere that's not private property can be covered by this.
It would be any city-owned property or any city right-of-way. So here are a couple of examples.
So, putting the street in front of my house, if I park my car there for more than 48 hours, I have to move it 500 feet from
So no. If we're assuming that your vehicle, that there's nothing wrong with it, are you? Is that right?
Yeah.
That we're assuming there's nothing wrong with it. It's just there. So if it was there and unmoved, the code as it's written right now, it would be considered a stored vehicle if it remains there for 120 hours.
Okay. But I assume this is complaint driven. In that case. Like if someone parks in front of Taylor's house, you're not gonna go by and ticket it unless somebody calls you and says, hey, this car's been parked in front of my house for a week.
So our 100%, yeah, it is complaint driven. Our practices, we would go there, we would figure out who the car belongs to and probably start knocking on doors to have a conversation to figure out if in fact it is in the neighborhood, it belongs to somebody, somebody's in town, somebody's on vacation. That's what we typically learn. Now, that doesn't mean that it's not a dumped stolen, because we found those as well. So it, but we don't just instantly just drop a ticket on there and come back 96 hours later and or 72 hours or 96 and tow it.
Yeah, that's the beauty of community policing. Yes. And having a good team.
This next slide describes 5 instances in which a vehicle can be immediately towed. First, we already covered the hazardous conditions. The second one I touched on under criminal circumstances. So in some situations, a vehicle can be evidence of a crime. The way it was written in the current code, it wasn't specific enough to be defensible. It said related to. The change says in this instance that it is an element of the crime, or it is evidence of a crime, as opposed to related to.
What contains evidence of crime?
That would be a crime. So certainly, yeah. The next one, item number 3, registration issues, and this was actually found in a court opinion. The court's actually authorized a vehicle to be towed when its registration has been expired for a year or longer, and this was one of the examples where ticketing by itself wasn't effective, that it was only through a tow that the government could get compliance. Next is driving violations, and this was also covered briefly. So for instance, in the situation of driving under the influence of intoxicants, that by itself was insufficient for a tow. The court specifically said that it is improper to tow a vehicle to avoid possible future criminal behavior. So let me break that down. So if, for instance, an individual is arrested for DUI, say for instance, the jail can't hold him. So essentially that person is released relatively quickly. While still intoxicated, the person returns to the vehicle and then drives away. That was some of the justification that was proposed in this particular case, and the court had none of it. They said it is inappropriate to assume that it needs to be towed because of the person is possibly going to commit another crime. But what they said is that there was one carve-out, and this carve-out was taken verbatim from that opinion. If the vehicle location jeopardizes public safety or traffic flow, so if the officer is able to articulate that, then the tow plus the commission of the crime would be authorized. Certainly wanted to make as many concessions as possible to make sure that this is justifiable if in fact a court ever reviewed it. And one of the concessions that we made is a requirement that if the person being arrested says there's somebody who is a legal driver and can come pick this up, that the police officer will do his or her best to contact that individual to see if that person can promptly get the vehicle and avoid a potential tow. And then number 5 is a fire scene. It was already in the code, but it is now explicit that that those vehicles that need to be towed because fire department is addressing an emergent situation, that they are authorized to tow. Now, it wouldn't be towed to a tow yard. It would be moved as minimally as possible in order to be able to effectively address the fire.
Quick question on the immediate tow options or along the scenario. So here's a scenario. Kristen is probably familiar with this. Craig is probably familiar with this. We have an approved special event permit in town, and we post all the signs, along the streets, the boundaries and the special event permit, and saying, hey, don't be parking here because of a parade or because of a festival or whatever it is, the special event thing is. You can't be here from whatever time until whatever time. And lo and behold, the time shows up and there's cars still parked there. How does this code handle that, or do we do it some other way, or do we just have to track down the owner?
I've introduced a no parking zone. So essentially, if the city manager were to designate a location as a no parking zone.
Temporary no parking zone?
It could be temporary or it could be permanent.
Okay.
And the city manager is given the discretion to determine when it's going to be permanent or temporary. So for instance, if the parades are coming down and the streets need to be cleared, it would indicate 3 days prior to the restriction, the date and time and duration of the restriction. And if somebody parked in a no parking zone, that's an immediate tow.
Okay. Awesome. That's great.
So moving on briefly to the impound procedure, there are procedures both before and after the tow. The notice before, the sections that I've added require the notification indicate the current location. Now keep in mind, the person who parked is not necessarily the person who is the responsible owner for the vehicle. So part of the notification in identifying where the vehicle is located might be pretty essential for the responsible party to be able to take control of the situation. And what I've also added to our code is the time and date, the earliest time and date in which a tow could occur. Otherwise, there is a notification after the vehicle's been towed, and there's also a requirement for reasonable efforts. One of the court opinions talked about police agency that just kept writing tickets, just kept putting the tickets on the car, but didn't do anything to verify, can we identify where this owner is located? Can we reach out to them? And that goes to reasonable efforts, and that has been included because that was one of the areas that the court was very critical. The release requirements were drastically simplified in its current form. The release requirement required a proof of registration, proof of payment of all of the municipal fines. What we were trying to do was separate the two. Because the court has considered the possession and use of the car as part of a daily necessity, that taking it or keeping that vehicle from a person can affect numerous things, including their job, any person that they're caring for, just getting food back to their home. So we wanted the least number of restrictions to just get the vehicle back. To get the vehicle back, they're going to have to pay the tow yard. That's the tow yard's business. But on the law enforcement side, the only thing that's required is that either the person is the owner or is the designated person by the owner to pick up the vehicle. That's really the only requirement, at least in terms of the city requirement.
I'm not familiar with the towing industry. Is the tow charges a regulated charge? If so, by who? Are the storage charges a regulated charge? If so, by who? I don't know either of those answers.
They are, and I think Chief Hanlon can go into it in greater detail than I do, but each sheriff's office is authorized to set standards, and all cities within that county must follow that standard. So if the PD calls for a tow, I believe there is, it won't necessarily go to the one in Sherwood. It may go to any number of different tow yards in the area. And the MOU, is it an MOU? It's an IGA, describes the procedure, and we're required to follow it. Is there anything else, Chief?
That's just good to know that it is a regulated thing, so there's not price gouging potential.
But it does seem like it's a huge pain for me to go to Hillsborough to get my car back versus Sherwood to get my car back.
Excellent question. Point.
Unfortunately, it's just the way the IGA is written, and all the tow companies have agreed to these standards, and they're on a rotation. So it's
just double
Whoever's next in line for the call.
unfortunately, it just is.
Okay.
And that was an example of something we didn't have control over.
Yeah, okay.
Yes, so to your point, it could go to Hillsborough, but
And how do I know that? Like, how do I
you
know
would be
where
told, you would be notified of that, because on the notice,
it says
we
where.
notify where it goes.
They would call the police department. So say, for instance, they never received a ticket. They would call the police department. The police department would get the information and be able to identify which tow yard. So that
Prices
that's
are all the same.
Correct.
I believe they're set.
I think they're within a standard. To your question, so they call us, because any car that we tow, we have to enter it into LEDs so that it's not entered in as a stolen, because sometimes somebody's car will be towed and they'll come home and they'll be like, my car's towed, and they call the police and they report it as stolen.
Thinking it's stolen,
When
yeah.
in fact, it was towed. And so that's why there's these safety mechanism put in place. So we tow it, it goes into the system so that if in fact somebody does inquire or tries to report it, they will be notified if in fact we haven't done it yet for them. So long answer, but yeah, still doesn't control who tows it.
Is that same system that you're using for towing the system that you would track the amount of violations, hours, separate systems?
That's going to be incumbent upon the officer and then working with court to determine all those. So if you've seen it before, the example is we leave a citation on the vehicle. We'll come back 24 hours later, still there. You've seen our orange stickers. That is the notice of tow. That's when we give you 72 hours to say if you haven't complied or moved it. That's when we'll come back. So we will track it, and then working with court on the prior violations, we're figuring all that out as well.
Sounds like a bit of a
It's some work, but it's worth it. I mean, I think it's important that we have something in place, and
Yes.
obviously we can adapt as we move forward.
So since that's like an internal tracking process, say one officer puts the orange tag on and then 72 hours you would go back and check, but that officer, it's his day off. Somehow that transfers to somebody else who's going to be on duty? Theoretically?
Yes. Or we ask somebody to follow up with it. The CSO can do it, so if they're on, sometimes those fall on weekends, and you're right, schedules,
Yeah.
it could be 4 days,
Yeah.
depending.
Okay.
But
And to be able to prove that the tow was lawful, all of that documentation would need to be provided to the city attorney's office, as an example, so that we can actually prove that the person didn't move the car, or something else happened in between the shift changes. All of that would have to be taken into consideration.
But as with any citation,
Yeah.
there's a documentation.
It's all about
requirement,
proof.
So it's,
Certainly. The last thing I want to mention on this slide is the hearing process, and that was a change for the requested hearing. I mentioned it briefly, that state statute requires a hearing within 3 days. We wanted to change it from 7 to 3 so that we're in compliance. Also, if an officer just cited the statute instead of citing the code, there's any number of ways that could go wrong. So we make sure that it is the same standard. So regardless of whether they're citing to the statute as their basis to tow or they're citing to our code, it's the same standard and it's not going to be a legal issue.
Does that hearing happen before it's towed or after?
It could happen either. So say for instance, somebody gets notification that maybe their trailer is parked there and they get a notification of the intention to have that trailer towed. They can request a tow hearing so that it's not towed. Alternatively, if they think, well, I wasn't there for the requisite number of hours, or I was permitted, whatever the case might be, they'll have an opportunity afterwards as well.
I get the afterwards part, right? You want to get your money back and whatnot. The before part, you wouldn't even just move the car. Like,
Well,
why
hopefully
do you need to have a hearing?
Hopefully
Like,
that would
It's a pretty black
happen.
and white situation, isn't it?
Hopefully that would happen, but we still want to be able to
They may
provide
not
the
think
most
it's black and
amount
white.
of
But what
tools.
are they contesting, that they're not parked illegally? I mean, isn't that like
We
that
would-
open for interpretation?
Yeah, it seems as though that is highly unlikely, but we want to be able to provide the most number of
Sure.
tools for the most number of circumstances.
Not parked there. Well, I'm standing right there, and you're parked there, so I mean,
There might be
This
some
last,
scenario you're not thinking
you
of.
probably.
this last slide addresses some of Councilor Mays' questions. Some of these are amendments, some of these are new. The amendments, the time and location. There was already a requirement that if a vehicle is within 300 linear feet on the same side of the street, that the code can consider it to be continuous. But what wasn't included in there was the same lot. And since the city lot is a limited resource, we certainly wanted it to not just be a line, but an entire lot. Second thing on here is the fee schedule. So all of these are called administrative fees. It's relevant in terms of the amount of money the city takes in versus having to pay the county and the state. We actually pay the county and state, I believe it's $75 total off the top of our ticket if we call it a fine. But other cities call exactly what we're doing an administrative fee, so it definitely does not stand out as odd or cheating the system. This is in alignment with standard practice.
Well,
And
let's
then-
just keep the fee lower, because we don't have to worry about that state component.
Right. Yeah, following the standards of what other cities do when using a fee.
We're following the fee, and we're authorized to do so. Then finally,
And then the city council and the city budget committee reviews fees on an annual basis through the budget process.
the fee schedule will come to council on the 1st, and for each of these new sections, I will be proposing a fee for each of the new violations, and that will be up for council's review.
But then going forward, am I correct that would be part of the bigger fee schedule of annual budgets in future years? So that's where you would adjust it, or do you have to have so that it's part of just a big bucket of fee schedules that's approved with changes every year?
It could be. In this instance, we're adding it as a separate resolution. I know that some departments update annually. I believe that this fee schedule wasn't updated annually. Does that sound right?
Yeah, we haven't updated this in several years.
But we do a review of all city fees every
It's
year.
in our fee schedule.
It is, yeah, so
This could be updated annually, just like all the other fees. could be.
absolutely, yeah.
Might not be any changes, but it's.
It'll be looked at
The
as
fee
part of it.
schedule is reviewed annually. Whether we update it or not is a different question.
Thank you.
So is it possible with the proposal that will come in 2 weeks, that is, the language is such that it's automatically, in future budget cycles?
It should be part of the fee schedule in the future, yes.
It is.
So whatever awesome.
Thank you. And then finally, this also addresses the no parking zones. The city manager is authorized to designate a location, a no parking zone, either permanently or temporarily, and the temporarily would address the city's specific needs in terms of festivals. And then, of course, the immediate tow for 2 unpaid municipal judgments that are due and unpaid.
And similar, we mentioned festivals, but it could also be
Any special.
yeah, or a construction project. You know, if we were to close a street to move a bridge section, you know, get the
There's
Absolutely.
no parking spots.
As long
over
as
there,
we
but it's a
follow
good
the
thought.
72 hours notice, it could be that.
So Sebastian, I know you have this covered, but just so we can talk about it, if we have a permitted parking area, like for instance, we used to have around the old high school, if an unauthorized car is there, is that considered a no parking zone for that car?
It certainly could be.
Is it- do
And
we
that,
address
that
that in
really
the
will
code?
that really will depend on how the city manager has designated a location, because he really would have authority to impose any number of different conditions: time, time of day, location,
But we
and
have
including
designated permit parking areas in the city today.
and including of failing to be a permitted location. And I think that the sign would have to
Right.
very clearly reflect that it's no parking except permitted.
Okay, so the code, I'd hate to have the city manager have to go out and independently designate it. If it's a permitted parking area, it should just be covered by the code, right? Yeah, okay, I just want to make sure it is.
I think between the code and then noticing of signs on that street that it's a permitted, that permits are required. Sorry, I have the mic off and I do apologize.
Probably heard you on mine. So, all right, I just want to make sure we have that piece covered.
Great,
Thank
great
you.
point.
And that concludes my presentation. Are there any additional questions?
We asked a lot.
I think you did.
Sebastian, I want to personally greatly thank you for doing all this work. This was not a easy lift, and it's a great thing to, if we adopt it, which I hope we do, to put it in place to give the city manager, city staff, and our police department a better tool.
Thank you.
100%, yeah, thank you, Sebastian, that was a great report. Yeah, and I agree. So at this point, I guess we can go right to opening a public hearing. So would anyone like to give testimony on this proposed ordinance today? I see no one online, and I see a lot of city employees in the audience. All right, well, with that, I'm going to go ahead and close the public hearing. Any additional questions or discussion for staff? Being that this is the first hearing, and I think we can just continue this to the next hearing. Do you have a question?
Craig, are you supportive of the proposed ordinance?
Yes, I think this, one, helps the police department, right? And two, it allows us to be current with our code and allows us to have the parking zone, no parking zones and stuff for festivals, as well as deal with parking lots as well.
Thanks.
Yeah, and as we talked a lot about the minutiae of this code today, but it's kind of a reminder for people listening that the intent here is not to go off and launch a no parking zone crusade in the city. This is just more about making sure we're compliant with law, compliant with current state law and precedent, and that we have a tool to deal with the nuisance situations that we run into every once in a while. So,
Thank you.
awesome. Well, with that, no more questions. We'll go ahead and continue this we'll have this back in 2 weeks. Or not 2 weeks, in our next regular schedule. On the 1st. Yep. Awesome. Thanks, everybody. And we will go right into the city manager report.
Just have a couple things. As you know, the Ped Bridge went over 99 a couple weeks ago. We have another road closure this weekend for Elwert and Kruger from March 21st, which is Friday at 9 p.m. to Saturday night, the 22nd at 9 p.m. They'll be lifting span 3, which is over the green space, and span 4, I might have that backwards. Span 4 is over the green space, span 3 is over Elwert, and then as we get a little farther into May, they'll have Kruger closed again to install the last 2 spans. So hopefully they'll stay on time like they did the first time and maybe finish ahead of schedule. I also just want to give council a heads up that we've been working on a little bit of a software that'll be reporting the city goals this year as we move forward. Senior leadership's going to go through training in about 2 or 3 weeks, Kristen, I think is what it is. And it's more of a tracking system, measurable, and how we deliver them. And eventually it would be nice to have that on our website, as well as it'll be, senior leadership will be able to go in and update those goals, and you'll see it right away. And we will, so a little bit different approach than what we've been doing, but hopefully that it'll work out. So I'll provide more feedback in some of our one-on-ones as we get the training on it. So anything to add, Kristen, on that? Awesome. That's all I have tonight.
Any questions for Craig? All right, jump into council announcements, and Dan's not here today, so you want to start?
Sure. Planning Commission did not meet. We do not have any business in front of us right now, so I got off this week on that. I did go to a Metro Mixer on Thursday with a lot of leaders from around the area, including the Metro Council. Part of it is to continue to develop relationships there and make sure that as we begin our master plan for Sherwood West and for affordable housing and stuff like that, that we are talking to the right people. And I know Eric and team are connected on their side as well, but I wanted to make sure to meet the right people there. I think Kim will talk about the other meeting, but then...
Go ahead.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Well, I was going to say, I joined the Policy Advisory Board. Is that it?
Yep.
And just as an observer to see their the procedures that they go through for awarding grants and for evaluating them and stuff like that, because I am Kim's alternate, and so I wanted to make sure to understand, just so in case I had to step in. And it was a lot of worthy projects. I don't actually have them in front of me right now, so if you do, you can talk about them. One other thing I did want to say, I was at the bridge moving around thing, and the thing that I heard consistently from the people that were there, and so Jason, this is credit to you and your team and to you and your team, like people just were amazed at how smooth it was going for something that had never been done before, right? They're like, well, do they do this on other bridges? I'm like, well, this is the first bridge ever put in Sherwood, and it's a unique design, and there's a lot of one-of-a-kind problems, and so it was very apparent to all of the people there what a miraculous and significant engineering feat it was. And so it really was like there was kids that were in awe of it. There was citizens, there was people taking pictures there. You know, I asked a woman who'd been there for about 4.5 hours, and she's like, this is a once in a lifetime thing to see that big of a thing move on and to be put into place in Sherwood. And so, congratulations. I know we're not all the way there yet, but the fact that it was done and ahead of time is really impressive. I mean, for a city our size, a department our size, all of that stuff, to do something that momentous was just, you got great people and a great team. So congratulations. That's all for me.
Thank you. Renee?
I don't have a lot to report because I've been out of town. I know the Senior Advisory Committee did meet, I believe it was last Wednesday. There's conversation with the Parks Board about working together to have some adult-friendly equipment at one of the parks. Langer Park is the park that's being spoken about. So that's fun and exciting news that might happen someday. And that goes in conjunction with the age-friendly city conversation and making sure that we're working that plan. The Chamber of Commerce is getting ready for Cruise in Sherwood coming up in June. So there is opportunity to sponsor as well as be a vendor. And of course, volunteers are always wanted and needed. So if there's any interest there, I encourage you to visit the Chamber of Commerce website or stop by the office. I was with these two in Washington, D.C., and Kristen as well, on a contingency of youth this past week. I don't know, time frames, my time frame's all off. Enjoyed spending time with the youth and meeting new people, but I had the most fun listening to the panels about the Department of DOGE, government efficiency, and hearing the ramifications of some of the executive orders that are being put out and everything. But it was enlightening to me. I enjoyed those two things. And there is an open house tomorrow for a new build out at Jessica Passion of East Washington County in Tigard, which is one of the projects that has been funded by the Metro funds that came in. And last but not least, there are still CEP grants available. We learned this morning, or to this evening, it is evening, not morning, that no one has applied yet for some of the CEP grant money. So those are still open until, is it April 15th, thank you, to get that opportunity to be a part of the mix. And I think that's all I have.
Thank you, Renee. Keith?
Yes, I'm gonna go.
Oh, I'm just going down the row. Do you want to go before? You can go next. Yep.
Thank you, Mayor. Yeah, congratulations to the entire city team and the engineering company and all the contractors to put that first bridge section in. Thanks to everybody who did all the photography work as well, documenting it. So folks that, it wasn't a place that people could really gather in mass or had the time to hang out and watch it for however many hours, but to be able to see it go in place, a hell of a thing. Super awesome. And then boom, 2 more sections are going to go in before you know it. It's real now. It's real. So congratulations, great job to everybody with the city and the contractors and the engineering firm. Had Cultural Arts Commission meeting last night, which was great. They will be submitting multiple applications to the Community Enhancement Grant program, which will be exciting. I think people will like what they're going to propose or suggest to fund. And talked about the medallion program on the bridge, and yeah, I think that was about it.
Awesome.
That's enough.
All right. Yeah, the bridge stuff. Again, I'll just echo what everyone said. When I didn't go over and watch it go up, but when I got the all clear that the road was back open, I threw my family in the car and we did a loop and drove under it and came back around. And yeah, and then what blew me away though even more was Monday I went to work. I go up Roy Rogers, so I didn't notice it on the way to work, but coming back, turned right from Roy Rogers onto 99, and it's like, whoa, you can see it all the way down, and it's like, it's you knew it was going to be there, but like it really. It's a beacon more than you even realize. And then I'm just thinking about it, even coming from Newburgh when all 5 spans are up, it's just going to be like, we saw all the renderings, but when you see it real, really out there, it's going to be a huge like part of Shore's identity. So I'm really excited to see that all keep coming together, and kudos to everyone who's been working on that. Parks Board met at the beginning of the month. So in addition to the usual removal of trees, which happen every meeting. Now these are dead trees. We're not cutting down forests or anything. These are
Good
safety hazards. It's always funny because that's always on the agenda every month. Like, we got 5 more dead trees to remove. So someday I'll come to a meeting and there won't be dead trees, and I'll be shocked.
And they replace them though.
They do with appropriate trees that are for the area, so it's good. But in addition to that, we talked a lot about there was a lot of excitement about the joint partnership with the Senior Advisory Board around some of the work that they can do in parks. And so there's a lot of excitement on the Parks Board as well around the ideas that were fostered with that partnership, which I think is something we started about a year ago now. And, getting our different boards and commissions connected together and finding those opportunities. And I think this is one that we're seeing, come to life there. So we're looking forward to their continued work on that. There was a lot of discussion about Langer Park that started in the realm of what we could do there with some of the senior stuff, but then I think even there's other opportunities at Langer based on. Am I allowed to talk about this? Okay. So as people may or may not know, Langer Park is not technically operated by the city right now. It's owned by the HOA there.
Owned by the city.
Well, owned by the city, operated by the HOA. Thank you. But I think there's an opportunity for the city to take that on and really treat it like all of our other parks and have it in our full control, if you will. And I think that'll benefit the people that use that park, and I think it'll benefit the city, and we'll have a holistic approach. So, looking forward, I think there will be opportunities at Langer Park that we haven't been able to really do before. So I think that's good. Yeah, that's kind of it all I had on that.
Awesome, thank you. Kim?
The week before last, I attended ribbon cutting across the street at the Ascend Beauty Lounge, that building right next to Symposium that has work on bottom, live on top. And then also this past Saturday, next door to Ascend Beauty Lounge, Stumpy's Mini Bar and Bottle Shop had their grand opening. I think their ribbon cutting will be at a later date, but go check that out. Beer offerings, selections, sounds interesting. I also attended National League of Cities in DC last week with Renee, Tim, and Kristen, and 5 amazing youth from our high school. I think one of my favorite parts was the dinners we had with them and to hear about their day and how intelligent these 5 students were, and to listen to them ask questions when we were sitting in with Salinas. Well, one of the students got to go with us to meet with Representative Salinas. All of them met with Senator Merkley, and to hear the questions that they got to ask, very thoughtful. They've done their homework. They're very engaged in the government process. So that was fun. The other thing I appreciate about the National League of Cities is they're like nonpartisan. They realize they represent all cities in the United States, and so our one of our headline speakers was Vice President J.D. Vance, and I think last year was President Biden. So they invite all parties to come be speakers. So I appreciated that. Yesterday, I was scheduled to testify on Senate Bill 974-1. Was in there for an hour and a half, and then I was the next one up to testify, and the time ran out, so they held the hearing over till tomorrow. So we'll see if I have time to get that in my work schedule tomorrow. But that's testifying housing-related issues. And then since Taylor brought it up, some of the things that were funded, never mind, I don't have it right in front of me. Oh, yes, I do. Some of the things that were funded from the Policy Advisory Board. This is the Washington County Policy Advisory Board for community development, block grants, home funds. Some of the things we approved this year were funds for the Central Cultural Forest Grove Senior Center Program, Vienna Star for Resident Services, Home Plate Youth Services, and Family Promise of Tualatin Valley. This is all assuming federal funds come in. This is all dependent on federal funding. Also approved was City of Tualatin to do some upgrades on their Juanita Pole Center. And then Tualatin Valley Water District has a large water main upgrade pipes that needs done. And then, so that was great to see Taylor joined in just to kind of see how that process goes, because that's a really collaborative team. There's one representative from each city and one representative from the county that all get together and score these grant applications to come up with how to fund these grants. And of course, you want to fund everything, but there's never enough money to fund everything. So that's about it. That's what I got.
Awesome, thank you. So just for me, we've talked about some of these things. I just want to say kudos on the bridge. The city staff, the engineering teams did an amazing job. Oh, I'm not on here.
There you go.
Now I'm on. I'm going to bring up the bridge again. Just huge kudos to the team, Public Works Department, the engineers, the staff, all the people that made that happen. I was actually on Coins Meet the Mayor segment the Monday before the lift happened, and they reminded me that we closed the 99 down when we had the wine festival going on in McMinnville.
Yes.
I was getting teased a little bit about that, but I remember saying that we're closing basically the whole weekend, but we're really hoping to get it done early. And so thank you for following through with that and got it done in record time.
So I'll just say thanks for all the kudos. A lot of team went into that. I mean, PD was involved, Public Works. There's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that I'm just fortunate that I'm on some emails, the communication plans with ODOT. I mean, there's just a lot of stuff that goes on. So it's just not our Sherwood team, which has done a great job. It's ODOT, it's a variety of people, the county.
Citizens that want to get their
Right,
drones in the
right.
air.
So there's just a lot of players that are involved in it. So yeah, it was nice to get it opened back up early. So thank you.
Yeah, well, and please pass our thanks along to the team. I saw one Facebook post, someone said, why is there so much traffic on Sunset? And then, of course, hundreds of people weighed in.
Where have you been?
How could you not know about the bridge? And NLC, we had the National League of Cities Congressional City Conference, great event, tons of great networking. I just want to echo what Kim said about the 5 kids that we had from the high school there. Just absolutely amazing kids. And you're right, the dinners were, it was just so amazing to hear them talk about what they want to do. And I talked to several of them. They got to meet with Senator Merkley. And even after he left, the staff was very generous with the kids and stayed and talked to the kids about how their journey, how did they get to that role in civil service. And these kids just walked out pumped about
Internship opportunity.
Yeah, they just walked out really pumped about potentially a role in civil service. So that part was absolutely amazing. The conference was great as always, and lots of great networking content. You get to talk to a lot of counselors and mayors from around the country, hear what their challenges are, how they're solving problems. So you learn just a ton. I testified today in Salem on an infrastructure bill. There's an proposed bill that would provide funding for site readiness for industrial land projects, which obviously for Sherwood that's very important. So testified on that, trying to get some dollars turned our way for that. I had an MPAC meeting, a WCCC meeting. I won't go into the details. I'll just leave it at that for tonight.
Okay, because we have another meeting.
We have another meeting. So anything else for the good of the order from council meetings?
A 5-minute meeting next.
Yeah, a quick one. All right, I'm going to go ahead and adjourn this meeting, and we will jump right into I'm going to go ahead and call to order our Urban Renewal Agency Board of Directors meeting. Roll call.
Chair Rosner,
Here?
Vice Chair Young,
Here?
Member Browse.
Here.
Member Mays.
Yep.
Member Scott.
Here.
Member Giles.
Here.
Thank you. And Member Stankey is absent.
Thank you, Sylvia. On the consent agenda tonight, we have 2 items. Approval of the January 21st, 2025 URA Board meeting minutes. And item B is URA Resolution 2025-002, pledging Urban Renewal Agency revenue as a repayment source for the Oregon Transportation Infrastructure Bank loan for Ice Age Drive.
Move consent?
Second.
Have a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the consent agenda say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, council. Next item, citizen comments. Sylvia, do we have any citizen comments?
I have none.
And I see none online, so we'll go right through that, and we are adjourned.
Not even 5 minutes.